regardless, I think legislators are either in Frederick, in Annapolis, or driving in between somewhere. So hopefully you're not stuck in your vehicle on the roads. I hear they're pretty bad. We have a busy agenda today. We're going to move through it expeditiously. The first order of business on the agenda is the Middletown Wastewater Treatment Project. There were 2 requests for letters of support. Just to recap for everybody, last meeting, we discussed modifying the letters, essentially asking MDE and putting in a request for the now supplemental budget because the governor's budget has been posted, basically saying, look, if you can't work with us on finding a either temporary or administrative fix, then we are requesting the funding, some assistance with the funding. So I think that's a more prudent response. Paul, is that your understanding?
Yes, that's correct, Chair Pippy. Yes.
Okay. So let's do this. Let's see if there's any questions. I see Senator Lewis Young has a question, and then we can move on to the business end. So go ahead, Senator.
Yeah, I totally agree. We need to send some letters. I don't think these are the right letters, and let me explain why. The letter to the budget director just asks for more money and says Middletown can't afford this project. That sounds like every other letter that the budget secretary gets. The letter to the Secretary of the Department of Environment is a bit better, but the opportunity we're missing is to talk about why this project is unique. This is a wastewater treatment plant that is in a floodplain that makes it susceptible for health and safety. And unless we can make that argument about why this project is uniquely qualified, I'm concerned that these letters are going to get filed right in the blue bin.
Delegate Boucher.
Thank you. I have to chime in on what the senator said, and I agree because while Commissioner, excuse me, Union Bridge has been facing the same issue. Their wastewater treatment plant is in the floodplain also. I think technically it sits in Frederick County, if I'm not mistaken. So that creates a very unusual situation that desires more attention than most projects because it is an environmental impact area. And what the pitch also was, is they received funding, it's probably Middletown too, in the beginning, from the federal government to put them there. They did these locations by direction of someone else. And now they should not be shouldering that responsibility because they were directed by higher levels of government to put these facilities there. That is something that we need to pitch, that it's not the municipality's fault that it's there. We should receive some more assistance on it. So thank you.
Any other points from the delegation? All right, so let me just recap a couple things because we've been working on this issue for quite some time now. We've had visits to the site. We've had discussions with various state stakeholders. I think this is the right approach. We need to send letters to the state. Does it guarantee they're going to get us funding? It does not. Does it guarantee they're going to work with us on maybe renewing the permit for another few years until they can find a workable solution? It does not. But not doing something is not going to work for me. I mean, at this point, we've had a week to go through these letters. Everyone's had an opportunity to chime in on them. We've made some modifications, basically saying that, look, if you're not able to work with us on the funding, then work with us on some other areas. At the end of the day, it's just a request. It's a formal request from our delegation, basically stating what Delegate Boucher just said, which was, hey, we got a real issue. We'd like you to work with us. If you can't work with us, it's very expensive. And at the end of the day, it's not Middletown's fault. So for me, you know, this is what we got. We modified the letters from the last meeting to make them, in my opinion, more workable. At the end of the day, everybody in the delegation has a vote. And if you choose not to support it, obviously that's within your right. But I think it's time to move these letters because the budget process is in full-blown working right now, and we've got to do something. So unless there's any other comments about it, or if Paul, you want to make any last-minute statements about it, we're gonna move this. I say move. We're gonna put this up for a vote. So, Paul, are you good?
I'll just say, go ahead,
I-
sorry.
I agree. We need to send a letter, but let's make the case because the budget secretary is just going to refer this letter to the secretary of MDE, who's going to say, no, they don't qualify because we haven't made the case in the letter. And we haven't had a week to look at these letters. I just saw the revised letter, I think a day ago. So all I'm saying is let's strengthen the letter to make our case.
I mean, is there any harm in sending the letter and then I mean, you think of a bill, for example, you introduce a bill and then you work it. You start talking with stakeholders. If there needs to be amendment to the bill, then we can do that. If there needs to be an adjustment to the letter, we can do that. But time is of the essence because the supplemental budget is now in the works. The governor's already put his budget out. I mean, we've got to say something, and then we can, take any suggestions on a full-blown approach to this issue. So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't think it necessarily hurts us by submitting a letter, but I see Senator Fulton's hand, so go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, if we can recraft or just add to the letter to give that language about placement that was given as a directive, and now thereby they're dealing with a significant cost that they can't afford to the town, I don't think that's much to ask. I think we just make the case, add a couple lines, point out the points that are being made, and with that, we approve it moving forward with those few revisions to be added to. It doesn't slow us down. I think we can still vote on it. The idea that we're just going to include a couple sentences that gives a little bit more of a nudge in the right direction and justification why it's not doable for Middletown and why it was placed there in the first place. It wasn't their choosing. So that's all. Thank you.
So are we saying that language is not in the letters? Paul, let me see if I can pull up my screen here. Hold on one second. Bear with me. Bear with me. All right, can everyone see that? Okay. So this is the draft letter there's two letters. And basically, I mean, does it not outline kind of what everyone's hoping it outlines? I mean, in the end, it says, look, in the alternative, if MDE is unable to provide the necessary funding to make the project financially feasible, the delegation asks that MDE renew the town's permit for their aerated sewage lagoon. I mean, what else do we want in there?
That's correct. That's located now, provided by the state and approved by the state many years ago. So through no fault of their own, they have to bear the burden, the brunt of all this moving the treatment facility.
Bolden, you might have not great reception out there. Say that one more time, please.
just that through no fault of their own, that location was provided to them by the state, and they complied, and that they should not have to bear the brunt of that relocation.
Okay. Delegate Kerr, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, the letter that came yesterday was dated back in December. The attachment that said it was and I just found the January 19th letter. So I think I'm good at this point. Thank you.
Okay, so Delegate Fair.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my only question was, can we include in that paragraph, say, requesting that they reevaluate their classification of this wastewater treatment plant? I think it cuts into Senator Lewis Young's point. I'm not sure it completely captures the whole thing. But I'm just curious if just adding that little bit of text in there, not just talking about renewing the town's permit, but rather talking about the classification piece of it as well.
All right. Any other? I mean, look, we Paul, are you getting all this?
Yes, I'm hearing all this. Yes.
Okay, so here's the deal, man. We're trying to help you out, but we got 15 folks here, and everyone wants some changes to the language. So it's going to be on you to put that change in the language and get it to everybody so we can vote on it. What I would do is, because it doesn't seem like, at least my take on it, I don't want to force the issue, but it just seems like people want some revisions to it, and we're running out of time here. So here's what I would recommend. Why don't you reach out to Senator Lewis Young's office, you personally, reach out to Senator Fulton's office, you personally, and any other folks that have an idea of what, maybe Delegate Fair's office as well. Get the language that is cohesive for everybody, get it drafted, send it to us, and we'll vote on it next week.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to do that. If I can just lend my view. So there's two letters being considered today. If the delegation could vote on just the supplemental budget letter, that would be fantastic. I don't think any revisions are needed for that. It's just a budget line item request.
All right, let me.
I'll just say
we are. Hold on 1 second.
Okay. Yeah, we're looking. And I appreciate a more dynamic approach, Senator Lewis Young, and we are taking a multi-pronged approach currently. We're working through the budget. We're working to get some BRF funding discretion through MDE. We're going to be looking at earmarks. We're looking at FEMA. We are no stone left unturned. So I'd be happy to revise that letter and get it back out to everybody in a timely manner.
Andrew, can you put up the letter for the supplemental budget? Bear with us.
I make a motion, we move on the supplemental budget letter. We've all had it.
Second, it's April.
Hold on, let's at least get it up, but that's fine, Senator Fulton and Delegate Miller. All right, so can everyone see the very short supplemental letter? All right, so we're in discussion phase. There's been a motion and a second. I'm having a hard time seeing the hands being raised here with that shared. So if just state your name, and if you have a question or comment about the motion, the second from the delegation members.
Hey, Pippi. It's Quarterman.
Senator Quarterman, yes, sir.
Quick question. This says it's a capital budget request.
Yeah, looks like the title
So I'm gonna say it's just a formality, but I mean, obviously the capital
No,
budget came
that's
out 2
good.
days ago, and
Yeah.
this is for a supplemental. I don't know if there's gonna be a supplemental, but we should at least be speaking to what we're asking about.
Yeah. Good, good point. Any other members? All right.
I'll modify my motion to make it the change that Senator Portman spoke of.
Okay.
And I concur.
Second on that. All right. Any other discussion? All right. So there's a motion and a second to approve and modify that letter to reflect the supplemental budget request. Obviously, that will be corrected in the title, but essentially the substantive nature of the letter stays the same. Any discussion, any further discussion on it? All right, we're going to do a, okay, so all those in favor, well, I guess we'll do a vote by acclamation unless there's any objections. For the record, I can note if you're opposed to that, but all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, so Paul, we're going to move that supplemental letter. We're going to make the adjustment, get that sent out. Please work with Senator Folden, Senator Lewis Young, Delegate Fair in our office to make those appropriate changes. And we'll get that on the agenda for next week, but at least we're not behind on the supplemental budget. So, all right, anything else?
No, I'll get right on that. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right, thank you, sir. All right, let's move into the delegation bills. It took a little longer than I was hoping, but all good. The first bill on the agenda is the municipal golf course license. To my understanding, this is a very simple fix. It just allows, I think, a golf course manager to be able to be a licensee. Don Sugars, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, is that your understanding of the bill as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. From the delegation members, do you guys have any concerns about that legislation? I think it only impacts really District 3 because I think it's a District 3 city-owned golf course. Is that right, Don?
That is correct.
Okay. So from the District 3 crew, do you guys have any questions or concerns with that?
No, I move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Is there a second?
Delegate Fair, I second.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, so we're going to move that bill then. And do you guys want that to be a Frederick County delegation bill?
That'd be my preference. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so the motion is to make this a Frederick County delegation bill. It's to approve the bill. It's been motioned and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
objection? All right, so we'll get that dropped off early next week. The next bill deals with the Weinberg Center. It's LR 1941. From my understanding, this is a bill that there's an adjacent facility across the street from the Weinberg Center of Arts in downtown Frederick. And what they want is to be included in that Weinberg special license. Is that right, Don?
That is correct.
So right
And that is
now,
LR 1949, just for the record.
yeah. So right now, the Weinberg has what's not a permanent license, but they have their own license. The Weinberg Center across the street has to apply for multiple temporary licenses because they're not technically I mean, through the liquor board at least, not affiliated with the other Weinberg Centers. So what this would do is this would give them not a permanent license because there's no such thing, but it would give them a full-time license so they don't have to keep applying for temporary licenses. Right, Don?
That is accurate.
Okay. All right. Delegate Fair.
Just a quick clarification, the building across the street is the New Spire Arts performance stage, and it is under an operating agreement with the Weinberg Center. So the Weinberg Center operates the facility, rents out the facility to the community, and that is the challenge. It's on a separate location. It's a different entity technically, but it's operated by the Weinberg Center for the Arts, which is
Awesome.
the Weinberg is a entity of the city of Frederick. So going fully back.
I love that. I love the technical explanation. That's fantastic. Thank you. Delegate Boucher.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I am a supporter of this bill and a big fan of the Weinberg Center. I advise everyone who's never been there to go there. My only question would be directed to Ms. Sugars. What is the basis for structuring the annual licensing fee of $325? How do we come up with that calculation? Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Boucher. That calculation was put into a bill many years ago under the Weinberg Center license fee that was done by Senator Ron Young. And the fee was established at that time at $325. So we just thought that it should mirror that because they will be, Weinberg acts as the mothership and the New Spires is what we call the child underneath of it. So we kept the fee just the same. There was no other thought process put into that as to should it be a higher amount, should it be a lower amount. We just followed suit that it would be exactly the same as the Weinberg Center licensing.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Sugars. I'd just like to potentially see a reasoning behind the fees because our constituents are like, why is a fee at that amount? So if you could get back to my office potentially with some research on why that fee is at that amount. I'm a very, very strong advocate of linking the fee costs to air costs. You know, if it takes $325 worth of your office's labor to fulfill that fee, then it's purely justifiable. But my constituents do not want arbitrary fees. They like to know the logic behind the fees. So that would be helpful. And thank you very much.
Absolutely. I will go back and look at Senator Young's previous, this was before my time, but I will see what I can find as how that was established. And I will certainly reach out to your office. Thank you for your feedback.
And Dawn, isn't the yearly fee less than all of the temporary fees they're having to pay now?
Absolutely. This will save them money.
Yeah, so that's a good point of clarification is that right now, because they're having to get constant temporary licenses, that costs more than if they just had a yearly annual fee, Delegate Boucher, if that helps. Delegate Miller.
Yes, just real quick. Is that where we had the women in trade? So it has like a little theater thing behind it and then the lobby in front of it? Am I thinking of the right place?
Dawn?
Yes.
That is the one. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. And then what does the municipal official designated by the mayor of the city to be able to sign the application? Is that just normal language?
That is the change in the language that they wanted because what we were running into is they were having their board of the Weinberg, 3 gentlemen that are on the board, sign off, and they wanted to be able to assign a manager to it that actually runs the Weinberg Center and actually runs the New Spires, who are actually involved in the day-to-day operation of that center. The board is actually not involved in it. So the preference was to make that change. And this request came from the city of Frederick to set this up this way for the manager to be able to be the licensee, just like the municipal golf course.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the same. I think Don just said it, but the same issue as the municipal golf course. So. All right, any other questions, concerns, or comments about this bill? And I think we had a motion in a second, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so we've got a motion in a second. We've had discussion. All those in favor of approving the bill as a delegation bill and moving forward with it signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, perfect. Moving along. The next bill is the Frederick County Gaming Acceptance of Credit as Payment. Delegate Miller, your hand is up, I'm assuming from before. We're probably going to have more of a discussion on this bill today, but let's open that up. So Senator Karen Lewis Young.
Yeah, I do have some concerns about this bill. I mentioned them the last time we met and discussed it, asked if there had been any research regarding risk in enabling people to use credit cards for this kind of gambling. I was told no. Haven't received any follow-up. So I did do my own research because I'm very concerned based on my past experience in the credit card industry that people, who struggle financially could create a real problem for themselves, or people that have gambling problems could create a problem for themselves by having that availability of plastic and thinking, okay, I'm losing, I'm going to stay in and recover. So I did do some research, and I did find a study that says half of the bettors who used a credit card to wager fell into debt as a result of that practice. So I have some really serious concerns about using credit cards for gambling.
Delegate Miller.
Yes, so we just had the whole iGaming briefing yesterday in our committee. I am happy to share that information with you, but there's a lot of movement toward that. I have some age concern restrictions on the iGaming piece, but I'm happy to take this to the subcommittee and the subcommittee chair ask their opinion on it, something along those lines, if that would make the senator feel any better. Not sure what else.
Okay. So I gotta actually let me get to everybody and then I'll chime in. Delegate Fair.
Yeah, I just want to thank Council Member Carter for bringing the bill forward. And I do want to highlight that this is really targeted and very limited in scope, which makes the bill kind of comfortable for me. It is focusing in on volunteer fire companies and auxiliary volunteer companies. I struggle because I'm not the biggest fan of gambling to start with, but at the same time recognize that a lot of people who go to gaming events, something that even my nonprofit puts on, a lot of individuals are seeking to use a credit card just in place of having a checkbook on hand or cash on hand. And so are we potentially limiting ourselves and limiting these organizations who are trying to do good work in our community to being able to raise the money necessary to be able to do that work specifically for such a small reason, while identifying and acknowledging that the offset is that folks can go into major debt with gambling. So because it's so limited in scope, that's why I'm a little more comfortable with this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Carter, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Hey, so let me ask you, I got a couple questions for you. So this bill does not actually approve gambling. That's already been established for these organizations. Okay. So if somebody had a debit card, let's say they don't have cash.
Mhm.
You know, like for me, I don't carry cash. When I go to Starbucks or a local Frederick County coffee shop, I buy it with a debit card. That's not going into debt. That's just using a card that I have that's attached to a checking account to make a purchase. You know, if I go buy bread at the grocery store or milk with the debit card, I mean, would this bill solve that issue as well, where it's not necessarily on credit, but just a debit card?
I believe there's language in the letter I sent to the delegation prior in regard to former Senator Ron Young's inquiry about this issue almost 2 years ago now, where the Assistant Attorney General went into that. And I can't have it off the top of my head, but I can refer you back to that letter that I sent the delegation just prior to our December 2nd meeting in Winchester Hall.
So, I mean, so are we not sure if this is just related to credit or if it's just related to using something other than cash?
This will be related to credit cards.
Okay. Credit from a person's payment. All right.
There was a discussion of PayPal and Venmo and these other sort of apps as well, but this specifically targets credit cards.
Okay. Senator Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I was on pace and I was moving along thinking this was okay because I was thinking the exact same thing that Delegate Pippy was about being able to utilize people's debit cards because they kind of run through the same processes as credit cards. But you're telling me it's your understanding that I guess either debit cards are already allowed and it's only for credit cards, or are the debit cards inclusive of being in the credit card grouping?
I'm believing that they can already use debit cards, but if they can't already use debit cards, and that is involved with credit as well. I'm receiving a text from a with a council member right now that says the same thing, that it is for debit cards as well. I apologize.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, what I thought, and that being the case, I'm okay with it. I just, if we were making a new grouping for specifically credit cards, I wasn't going to be in favor of that, but thank you.
And Chairman Pippy, if I may comment on the Senator Young's comments about the risk that may be incurred by individuals using credit cards for these sort of games of chance with our volunteer fire companies. I see it very similarly to how the state allows the purchase of alcohol with credit cards. And that's a same sort of addiction as gambling is, and we allow that with no questions asked. And then also we spoke about these sports books at our December 2nd meeting, and to that end, this sort of activity we're going to see is much limited, just as Delegate Fair said, and it's not going to be the same impact level as our sports books, because certainly we're not going to see commercials on TV incentivizing the deposit of a credit card with our volunteer fire companies like we see 10 or more times anytime we watch a football game or a basketball game on TV with these different various sports books.
Yeah, and I'd say this, I'm not a huge gambling guy myself. However, I am a big Frederick County volunteer firefighter guy. And, these organizations need our support. I mean, when I was on the liquor board, they really relied heavily on the ability to have events to raise money for their organizations, ultimately to keep our county safe. So today's purpose was a discussion. We're going to vote on this next week. But let's see if we can confirm that currently you are prohibited from using a debit card for these things, because I think that would probably make a big difference for some of the members here. And if anyone has any additional questions for you, Councilman, we can reach out and get that and be ready to go for next week. But I'm good. Does anyone else have any questions for the councilman? Nope. Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Before we move on, I'll just refer you back to that the letter that I can surely send out again right as I hop off this meeting. The Assistant Attorney General's letter to former Senator Ron Young that has all the information attached into it.
Yeah, and Andrew, do we have that letter handy by any chance?
It would take me a moment to get it up, but
all right, if we can find it, I'll throw that up, Mason. But we'll move on, and then I'll make sure everybody gets that. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, so the next item on the agenda is for discussion. It's the Frederick County School Construction Master Plan Work Group. Delegate Miller, do you want to kind of give everyone the introduction of this bill?
Yes. Thank you, Chair Pippy. So with this bill, and I apologize, I literally just got it back on 5 o'clock on Wednesday. I tried to share it with as many people as possible. So this would be a work group to talk about ways to either use public-private partnerships, examples of P3, to come together as a community to figure out ways to fund our schools. We have very limited budget options right now from the state. We know that it is going to be an issue. We know we're one of the fastest growing counties, and that we have a lot of needs as far as the repair of our buildings or the replacement. At every single meeting that we have been to as either going around District 4 or as a delegation at our county council meetings, at our Board of Ed meetings, we have heard an outcry from all different areas of the county about the needs of our schools and how we meet these. And I think that we all need to kind of come together to find solutions, whether they're creative solutions or working with our private sector. We've had ideas that have come to the delegation about that. There are other ideas in the community community. So it's really critical that we start to address this issue. And I think the work group is a perfect place to start that. So I submitted it. I've reached out to the county council. I've sent it to the county executive's office. And as we have discussions over the week ahead, I know there are a couple edits that need to be done as far as the positional piece. So if there's any other edits that anyone would like to see, just reach out and let me know. They're doing the process a little bit differently this time, where they went ahead and sent everything now instead of letting us do edits beforehand. So that's why the process looks a little bit different this time.
All right, thank you, Delegate Miller. Looks like Senator Lewis Young has a comment or question.
Yes, thank you very much. And I would like to thank Delegate Miller for sharing this bill with me a few days ago. Gave me the opportunity to do some vetting on it. I initially had some concerns when I saw it and wanted to substantiate whether they were legitimate or not. I will tell you, there are a lot of concerns about this particular bill. One is, I think it duplicates something that's in existence already. That's the School Construction Financing Ad Hoc Work Group that has 6 members of Frederick County Public Schools and about 5 members of the public on it, that to me duplicates not only the mission of this bill, but to a large extent, the composition. I do see that we have the president of the school board on the screen, and I believe Paul LeBeau, a staff member who oversees facilities and is very familiar with the process, is with us as well. So I hope they'll have an opportunity to share some of the concerns that were shared with me as I tried to vet this bill, because it's clearly a bill that would come to my committee and subcommittee.
Any other comments or feedback from the delegation? So my take on it, and obviously we'd be more than happy to hear from any other stakeholders that may be listed in the bill. We had a school board meeting earlier than last year. And actually it was supposed to be a delegation meeting between the delegation and the school board. And I was actually pleasantly surprised that when I showed up, everybody and their brother had been invited. The council was there, council president was there, aldermen were there, City of Frederick folks. I mean, it was actually a good experience because we had so many individuals literally at the table. And I thought that was a great thing, even though I didn't know about it, but I thought ultimately it was great that we were all there. You know, when I read this work group plan, I don't see that it makes us do anything other than come to the table. It puts the council and the school board and the delegation and the senators and the delegates, because it's a community problem that we're going to have to solve. And quite frankly, the fact that we have no money, you know, for school construction, and we have all these projects and all these schools that need to be built, it means that we all need to work collaboratively together. This bill was a carbon copy of what was done in Prince George's County, and I think there may have been some success down there with it. So I don't necessarily see any harm in having all the stakeholders put together. I mean, and for those of you listening out there, you know, the state of Maryland pays for half the schools. So the idea that you wouldn't have all of the stakeholders sitting together to figure this out, you know, again, that's my take, but if others would like to chime in on it, happy to hear it. Go ahead, Delegate Miller, real quick, and then looks like Senator Lewis Young has another comment.
Yeah, I don't look at it as a duplication. I look at it as an elevation and bringing all the stakeholders together. So that's kind of my take on it, as moving forward, that we're all on the same page and all on the same page together. And I think, like I said, I think that's what the community is really looking for.
Senator Lewis Young, do you have another?
Actually, I didn't, but I don't think the Prince George's example is relevant because they had some problems where for years they were not moving some school construction projects ahead. That is not at all similar to our situation. I think what we have here is there's a difference of opinion and priorities. And, so this could be an attempt to change the priority process, but I still see it's duplicative of what we have in place already. And I would really like to hear from the president of the school board, Mr. LeBeau.
Well, I don't think the president of the school board, isn't that,
I mean, the Board of Education.
okay. Delegate Fair, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick clarification, Delegate Miller, if you could. Is your intention for this committee to replace that ad hoc committee or to act in concert with that ad hoc committee?
I would say, more acting either in concert or having them be represented by the school board. We have no say in who's on the committee from the Board of Ed, from the county council. That is completely up to them. So bringing that information to this, that's why I said it's more of an elevation, not a duplication. And it's not to usurp the process at all. It is to add to the process. With what happened with the results in Prince George's County, this is just modeled after the structure of the work group. It's not modeled after their results. This result will be unique to Frederick County because some of the things that we do best as Frederick County, when we are faced with issues and we do come together and we are able to solve issues. And I think that's what will make this process very unique to us and not a duplication of result of Prince George's County, but more of just a duplication of the structure of the committee.
But to clarify, the ad hoc committee would still exist as well as this work group would
If they
exist.
want, it's ad hoc. I have no control over that, but yes,
Right.
Certainly welcome
But
to
that's
bring
your
it.
intent. Your intention.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I just need clarification. Thank you.
Great. Senator Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say, I think it's very important that we have all these community stakeholders involved. And, the ad hoc committee is it's very set to a certain group. This opens that group up and it gets all the stakeholders, all the voting members involved, from the county council to the delegation. And, and I agree with what Senator Lewis Young said, that, it is about priorities. And right now, Frederick County's priority should not be having the governor send millions of dollars for a downtown hotel conference center when we've got needs that include school replacement, that include the 15 expansion. So I believe our priorities are skewed, and that's exactly why it's important to have a set of eyes like this committee in place to be, if you will, the watchdogs or the sheepdogs watching over everybody to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to make sure that our priorities are straight. So I would urge that we that this move forward, and I support this 1,000%.
Okay. Thank you, Senator Fulton. So what we'll do, because today is a discussion purpose, we want to try to give all the bills everybody having a chance to digest. But if there are some stakeholders on the call today that would like to make comments at the end of the agenda, we'd be more than happy to hear them. Since this is Delegate Miller's initiative, unless she wants them to speak now, then we're gonna move on to the next item. But for those folks on the call, you will have an opportunity to chime in on that at the end of the meeting.
Well, I know with the weather and with time, I'm fine with moving it to the end, and then they can certainly reach out to me and we can have more discussion to bring forward.
Okay. All right. So we're going to move on. Next item on the agenda, unless any other delegation members have any comments on this. No. Okay. The next item is something we discussed last time, which is the Frederick County Manufacturers Limited Beer, Wine, and Liquor Permit. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to look at this bill, and I'll just recap it, give you a quick overview. So as all of you know, in Frederick County, we have the most breweries, wineries, distilleries, meaderies in the state of Maryland. That business model generally includes what's called a tap room, where you can kind of show up and, you know, taste one of their beers or mixed drinks, what have you. What has transpired over the last year or two is that these facilities have expanded, and that the Alcohol Commission at the state level was permitting them to hold events. So, for example, you look at, well, I'm not going to say any names, but you have some buildings that have like adjacent rooms, and they were holding weddings and other events, more of a rental kind of business model where you could, you know, have a reception there, things like that. Well, the Alcohol Commission has now said they cannot do that, and it's put these businesses in quite a predicament. So what this bill would do is it would give the local licensing board, the liquor board, the ability to offer a temporary permit for these establishments to hold an event space. It doesn't give them the, you know, there's some restrictions involved, which the liquor board would set up, but I think it's a good fix for a problem that is quite a big problem for a lot of our local businesses. Don, does that sum that up pretty good?
Yes, that is accurate.
Okay. Are there any questions or concerns from the delegation about this bill? Senator Fold.
Mr. Chairman, isn't this very similar then to what we just voted on for the Weinberg then? Because they had an adjacent facility across the street. Don,
It's a little different. Yeah, it's different in the sense that they were looking to have a permanent license, one that they could have renewed annually as opposed to the temporary. What this does is these folks already have licenses. This just gives them the ability to hold like a wedding. So for example, if you had a brewery and the brewery's like, hey, we'd like to have a wedding reception at our location on Saturday, we're going to close to the public in that part of the facility, and the liquor board has the ability to approve that on a temporary basis with some restrictions, so that they could host that event. Because currently they're not, according to the state commission, they're not permitted to do that. And so it's a little different, but these alcohol laws are crazy. So I can see how there's some confusion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Delegate Valentine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have one question on this. In the previous, one of the previous bills, there was a annual fee set. The bottom of this bill says that it will be set, and I was just wondering why there's not a preset fee on this particular bill where there was on the previous one.
Sure. So for a lot of jurisdictions, the state can permit the local licensing board to set the fee. You know, so I think this is just one that they can set a reasonable fee. I mean, we obviously have the ability to set the fee for them, but sometimes it's better for us to let the local experts to set that. The other one, probably to be in line with other licenses, there was already a state mandated fee, so that was probably why that was the way it was, but I don't think it's anything in particular. Is that right, Don?
That is correct.
Okay. Delegate Fair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just move approval on this bill.
Okay. So there's a motion. Is there a second?
That? I will second.
All right, Delegate Kerr seconds. Any further discussion on the bill? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor of, Ken, do we want to make this a delegation bill or
A delegation bill would be most appropriate because these facilities exist throughout the county.
Okay. All right. So the motion is to make this a Frederick County delegation bill and approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving along. The next item on the agenda is the truancy reduction pilot program. We had a magistrate online at the last meeting who discussed this along with some of her panel. So I will, any comments, discussion from the members of the delegation about this bill, what it does and what it does not do? Senator Karen Lewis Young.
I just wanted to add one piece of information. We had a very robust presentation in my education group this week, and we were talking about juvenile delinquency. And someone made the statement that they had done some research on young people who were going in that direction. And there was a high correlation between juvenile delinquency and truancy. So to the extent that we can do something to prevent truancy, I think it's already been documented that we can reduce juvenile crime. So thank you for that opportunity.
And just to point out, thank you, Senator Lewis Young. So just to point out, this bill, I mean, there's a pilot program elsewhere. It just adds, it gives the circuit court administrative judge the ability to create one in Frederick. So there's not a whole lot of meat and potatoes in this in this bill. I think we've heard the purpose. Hopefully, there's no there's no negative implications of what may occur, but I think there's still a lot to be decided on it. It's just giving them the option of creating the program in Frederick. So any other questions or concerns about it with the delegation? Delegate Simpson.
Don't we already have the program in Frederick? There is already a truancy court. I don't know that I completely understand, particularly during this financial time, what really this bill does.
Are any of the magistrates here? Is Magistrate Raymond here? Tell you what, I'm limited. It's kind of funny. I can only see a couple of delegation members. I'm literally staring at Senator Lewis Young, Delegate Simpson, and April Rose. I can't. Hey, how you guys doing? I can't see anybody else. Is there any of the proponents of this bill here? Magistrate Raymond, anybody like that? If you are, speak up. Okay, not hearing it. Senator Lewis Young, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I did not ask her to come back because we did have two questions. They were both answered. Delegate Simpson, you asked me this question and I responded to you. Did you not see that? The response?
I did, and they're already. You said they're doing this voluntarily.
They're
I think
doing
it's
it voluntarily, correct?
They're being paid through the courts. They're not volunteer. Their salaries are being paid. So I don't know that, and we know we already have this program in Frederick. I'm not sure. I mean, I believe it gives them extra money, and I do believe there are some other programs that have a higher rate of success, and also truancy is an area in the blueprint. So that's where my confusion is. I know that we already have this program, which is what they had said. All of the players are paid by their organizations, whether it's the court or the school. So I don't know that I understand. And this issue has come up. Remember, this is my subcommittee. This is going to go before my committee. It failed as a statewide because, in the discussion, some of the discussion was about, the blueprint. Some of the discussion was about there are other programs that are more effective.
Okay, so I will reread what the magistrate sent. It takes the place of the current program. The current Truancy Reduction Council is not sustainable. We have zero funding and everything is being funded voluntarily. That is why it's so important to pursue a local bill. this year because it's not sustainable with an all-volunteer group running it and the funding and no coordinator for the program. Now, that is directly from the magistrate.
Thank you for that. Senator Folden.
I think we have too many questions at this point. I move that we hold this until next week.
Okay. Is there a second for that?
I'll second it, Delegate.
Okay. All right. I mean, I don't think in the long run it's going to make a big difference if we hold it for a week, but are you guys, everybody all in favor of holding it till next week? Maybe we can bring the magistrate back and get some questions answered, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, we're going to hold that. Any objection to that? Okay. All right. I skipped a bill on accident. We're going to go back to it. The assignment of offenders to road work. This is Delegate Simpson's bill that she's putting forward. Go ahead, Delegate Simpson, with you want to introduce that to the members?
Yeah, it's it was introduced last year. It's a simple repeal. It just takes this out of, it's a 1917 basically Jim Crow law that's out there. It's not the way, it's specific to the city of Frederick. It was approved by the our chief of police, as well as the mayor, as well as the county executive, because it's not something that we utilize any longer. I believe Delegate Pippi asked me the last time, and I couldn't even find out when the last time it was even used. It's, you know, we just don't want this on the books any longer. It's not how we clean our streets. And I don't think anybody in this delegation supports chain gangs. So that's the purpose of the bill.
So if you can, you know, so if one of you delegation members litters in Frederick, they could have you working on Route 15 as I drive by coming home from Annapolis. Senator Lewis Young, go ahead.
Yeah, this is an archaic provision. It hasn't been used, as the delegate pointed out. My only concern is the title. I find it inflammatory. It kind of reminds me of the 1967 Paul Newman movie, Cool Hand Luke with chain gangs. Can we find a better title for this bill?
You got to hand it to bill drafting. I don't know what, you know, I think they get a kick out of making interesting titles, to be honest with you, for these bills. You got to hand it to them. I can guarantee you that probably wasn't a recommendation from anybody here. Go ahead, Delegate Miller.
Yes, Delegate, you mentioned like reaching out to all the other groups. Did anyone reach out to any of the county? Because it does say the county roads too.
As it says there, it is very specific to the city of Frederick. But yes, as I said, the county executive signed off on it as well. This has not been used. This is not how the county, the state, or the city.
Well, yeah, I know that, but it does say work on public roads of the county or the city with the district court on the back. So I was just curious.
Right. That's why I said that the county executive. If you look at the bill from last year, you'll see their letter on file.
Go ahead, Delegate Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the appropriate time, I move to strike the parenthetical part of the bill's title.
I second that.
Okay. Okay. So my take on it is, you know, look, this is a bill that if you do one of these infractions in the city of Frederick, then there's this provision where technically a judge could assign you to do road work either in the city or in the county. I'm happy to support the bill. Personally, I think it's an old bill, and you know, it's one of those archaic bills, kind of like some of our liquor laws here. But yeah, that's fine. If you guys want to put in a request to strike that that title, we can do that. Do we want to wait until next week to move this, or is there any strong objection from anybody to hold or not hold, or?
I'm prepared to make a motion to approve.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, and then there's a hand up from DLS. Maybe Dwayne, are you gonna respond to were you the one that made that title on the bill? Go ahead, Dwayne.
No, I didn't. But just to be clear, Delegate Simpson did include that title in the comments. So that's why it was included. But I think y'all should hold off on voting because you'll just have to vote on it again as amended next week anyway.
Okay.
Can we just make that a condition of approval, Dwayne?
It hasn't been dropped, so I can cross that out.
I think you still have to vote on the bill as amended.
That's the safer.
All right.
No,
Well, look, it's fine.
no.
The work's done. We'll let's do this. Why don't Delegate Simpson, why don't you go ahead and put in the request to change the title, and then we'll just do a 10-second revote on it next week, and we should be good to go. You good with that? Okay. All right. Good. So that should be no problem there. The last bill.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chair Hippie. Also, y'all don't need to put in a request. I'll just handle it myself since it is a delegation bill.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Well, then why don't we do?
Mr. Chairman, do I need to withdraw a motion?
Sure.
I withdraw my motion.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure we can vote on a bill. We did it earlier with the letter where we vote and agree to modify it, but that's fine. It's no big deal. I don't want to upset the apple cart here. All right, so the last bill is the Sheriff of Frederick County Salary Work Group. I think this was put forth by Senator Lewis Young. Senator, do you have any updates with this bill?
Yes, I'd like to table this bill.
Okay. Any questions or comments about the senator's tabling of the bill from the delegation?
Can I?
Sure. Let's do Senator Reedy. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So I just have a question here. I'm kind of agnostic, but we're tabling it. Are we tabling it because we're not going to do the salary study at all? Or are we tabling it so we can talk about it more? Or am I allowed to ask someone? Senator Lewis, can I ask you that question? Like,
yeah, sure. Very fair question. I think really both. So, you know, we all know the history on this effort, that it's passed in the Senate, but not in the House. There's been a history, I believe, now this is speculation on my part, because I voted for this bill at least once, that there are some folks focusing on the individual as opposed to the position. So late last spring, I was given some direction by a member of leadership in the House when I approached them to say, how can we get this bill passed in the House? And I followed that direction. Things have changed. As you all know, there are some indictments going on right now. And the feedback I received this past week was that the timing was not good to be moving forward on this bill.
if I could just, I appreciate that explanation, and that's fine for us to table it. I think it's a bit, once again, I understand the underlying issue that you just mentioned with indictments, but again, this is about whoever is elected sheriff in 2026. And I think you guys, I say you guys, I'm a part of it now too. I think we do need to move forward. I actually thought a study was the right way to go. A work group was the right way to go. So I guess I'm concerned because, you know, whatever happens with the trial and court case about the person involved, you know, there's going to be a sheriff in January of 2027. So anyway, but I understand. Thank you for the explanation.
And I couldn't agree with you more. I want to get this done. But I want to get it done in a manner that it's going to pass. And I just think if we move ahead, and it's defeated a third time, that's not going to help us in the long run.
So we got Delegate Miller and then Senator Fulton. Go ahead, Delegate Miller.
I actually agree with that my whole question was the same as Senator Reedy's, and I really believe that we do need to start going forth. Where are we on the rankings as far as sheriff pay across the state?
Is that a question for me?
Yes. So, yeah, if you know Senator Lewis Young.
I don't have the data in front of me, but I think that in past discussions, we're all agreed that it needs to be an adjustment. And I just want to make it clear that adjustment, no matter when we agree on a recommendation, it cannot be implemented until 2027. And so the closer to the date that we actually have a recommendation, the more likely it's going to be competitive anyway. So, you know, what I originally recommended as a 3-year process might be cut down to a 2 or even 1-year process.
I agree. We don't need such a long process with that. I think it could definitely be cut down. But my concern is that we're not going to be competitive to attracting people to run for the positions, or they're not going to be able to run, you know, similar as we know across the entire state with positions. You have so many issues with inflation, cost of living, everything like that in Frederick County. So I do think the study is the right idea, and I don't mind tabling it for a week till we can have, you know, more of the data, but I'm not sure. I would like to kind of move forward with it as well. It's not the person, it's the position. We're not voting on a person.
You know what, Delegate Miller? We don't need a bill to do a study.
All right, Senator Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look, I think we did a lot. We took a lot of concession when Senator Lewis Young wanted to bring up the idea of having a study done and having a 3-step tiered process. So we agreed that would be because of the process trying to set it apart and not make it a 1-year rush. This bill, as it's written now, is a study. It doesn't give any value. It doesn't require any amount that comes back. It just puts us in a position to continue in the next 2 sessions to be able to make a decision on moving forward from whatever the study were to say. I think that tabling this because leadership is saying, well, we're going to kill it, then make them kill it and put them on the record as killing it, another delegation bill, and let them show that those type of actions are, as they all want to tout their horns of being bipartisan and recognizing, you know, local autonomy and authority, that is actually not the case. So I say move the bill now, move it forward for the study, get this part out of the way so we have a number, and if they want to kill it, let them kill it. But this delegation supports, as a whole, the improvement of the study to find out exactly where we need to be in future out years for the sheriff's salary. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator. Delegate Boucher.
Thank you, Chairman. As a member of Judiciary Committee, I brought this issue up with the chairman, and I got the impression there is no appetite whatsoever to address this. And I understand the points everyone's making, especially Senator Fulton, Senator Lewis Young. But as a businessman, I also know there's a tremendous amount of inflationary pressure that's going to take place over the next 3 years. So even if we get started on this study now, the data we're going to collect is not necessarily applicable 3 to 4 years out. So it might behoove us to wait at least 1 more year, so it's in the second half of our term, to ingratiate ourselves better with the leadership, the people who are truly going to be voting and passing this bill, so we're more successful in the salary due set for the sheriff. I do not want an adversarial relationship with the powers that be that are going to determine the salary of our next state sheriff. That sheriff could come from either party, and I do not want to have negative ramifications upon the person who fills that next seat getting paid exactly what they should be paid for such a stressful job. So I do think that we should table this thing or put it off until next session and move forward with it. And I think we'll be in a much better position to reach the ultimate goal, which all of us are after, is to truly compensate our law enforcement leaders with the just amount of money they deserve and salary to perform that duty. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, oh, go ahead, Senator Fulton.
Look, I make a motion to move the bill as a delegation bill.
Second.
Okay. So discussion purposes, just for procedural, this is Senator Lewis Young's bill. You know, I don't know if you guys want to have a discussion. I mean, generally, the person that puts in a bill has the.
I just made a motion to make it a delegation bill.
Okay. All right. There's a motion and a second.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. The bill would have to be redrafted in order to make it a delegation bill unless Senator Lewis Young agrees to release her bill to the delegation.
Actually, that's not correct. We can change the bill. She doesn't, I can say that the same language move forward as a delegation bill, regardless of her approval or disapproval.
Can we get an opinion from Dwayne on that?
This is her bill. You can't force her to do anything with her bill. It hasn't been dropped yet, which is a little like, this is what happens when you discuss LRs instead of actual bills. You can't force her to do anything.
Mostly it's
So here's so what you could do, Senator Fulton, you could in 30 seconds put in a request to have that bill drafted, and then we could put it back on the agenda. That's something that we can do.
Yes, you would have to request that the bill is redrafted in the delegation's name instead
Dwayne,
of.
I'm making a request to have it crafted as a delegation bill, and you're the one that'll drop that then.
Yeah, so if someone seconds your motion and y'all vote for a new bill to be drafted with the delegation's name, then I'll draft it.
That's
Okay.
what my motion was.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, always a little excitement on Friday. So it seems as if where we are procedurally, just for the delegation, is that Senator Lewis Young has requested to kind of pull her bill back. Senator Fulton has put in a motion to have Senator Lewis Young's bill drafted as a delegation bill. There appears to be a second for that motion. So the vote is to have the delegation draft a work group to study the sheriff's salary, because look, at the end of the day, the position is woefully underpaid, and we're a couple years away from an election. Everyone knows on this call that you cannot raise the salary of a constitutional position midterm, whether it's clerk of the court, registrar of wills, sheriff, etc. So we have to fix this issue. We can't just not do nothing. We cannot not do anything. There's a lot of negatives in there, because this is coming. I mean, whether it's the current sheriff or somebody else, so I mean, we have to resolve this issue. So, all right, all those in favor of Senator Fulton's motion, I guess we should probably do.
Mr. Chairman, hold on. We're gonna have to do a roll call, but I want to make sure that Dwayne gets this in today, because today is the day that it would have to be dropped to guarantee a hearing. I don't want this sitting out there for an extra day.
I know, Senator, it will be submitted today.
Yeah, and what I would do, Senator Fulton, why don't you put it in an email? I don't know if Alicia's on the call, but if that's what you're going to do, put it in an email to bill drafting as well, just to make sure you have a record. It's my recommendation, and you can CC Dwayne on it. But
well, we got a record here as well. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to roll call. Thanks, Andrew, because I can't remember everybody's name. We're going to start with Vice Chair Fulton.
Aye.
Delegate Boucher.
Nay.
Delegate Siliberti. Okay, absent. Senator Quarterman.
Yay.
Delegate Fair.
Yay.
Okay. Delegate Kerr.
Nay.
Senator Lewis Young. Okay. Abstain. Record the senators abstain. Delegate Miller.
Nay.
Oh, I apologize, Senator.
That was not me. All right.
Delegate Miller.
Yes, I.
Okay. Senator Reedy.
Yes.
Delegate Rose.
Yes.
Delegate Simpson.
Can you just make sure to clarify exactly what we're, what the nay and the yay would be?
So the motion on the floor is to request a bill to be drafted that mirrors Senator Lewis Young's bill in the delegation name.
Okay, nay. Thank you for clarifying. I appreciate that.
Delegate Tomlinson.
Yes.
Delegate Valentine.
Yes.
Delegate Weigel. I think Delegate Weigel's here. All right, put Delegate Weigel abstain. And then the chair votes aye. Okay, so the motion passes. Dwayne and Senator Fulton's office will put that on the request, and then we will bring that back. Senator Fulton, do you have any other comments on it?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So that gets through all of the business that we had on hand. What I'd like to do now is give any of our stakeholders an opportunity to have any comments, and then obviously the members of the delegation will have an opportunity as well. So I see School Board President Karen Yoho. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Chair Pippi, for the time. I want to thank Delegate Miller very much. I know at the December legislative hearing that you held, she was really trying to problem solve, and I think this kind of came up at the end, the idea of a work group. And so that's very much appreciated to try to be a problem solver. Unfortunately, we in Frederick County, certainly on the school board side, I won't speak for the county government, we have some concerns with the bill as written. And Dr. Lebo, who is our chief operating officer and is incredibly knowledgeable in this area, is here to address some of the specific areas. So I'm just going to kind of keep it broad, but because he won't necessarily pat their own backs, I just want to say one of the items is to improve the maintenance and rehabilitation of public schools in Frederick County. Our staff is in, I want to say, the top 100 in the country of its ability to maintain and rehabilitate our schools, our aging infrastructure. So I want to pat them on the back because it is noteworthy. That's not saying they can't do it better, but they are constantly looking into what can be done. Our main issue, let me step back briefly. I'm trying to not take too much of your time. This was based, as you pointed out, on a Prince George's County bill. What was happening there is they're about 3 times bigger than we are as a school system. And but we are growing. We're the fastest growing, you know that. Carroll County, also some legislators here from Carroll County, second most, but we're about 4 times the growth of Carroll County, and a lot of others are losing. That'll change in the next few years. But Prince George's County had a lot of issues that are unique to Prince George's that have nothing to do with Frederick County. One being they didn't have construction projects for schools in the pipeline, and they were sending money back to the IAC, the Interagency Commission on School Construction. And so the senator from their county got frustrated, wrote the original bill because he didn't want to see that money going back. That, I assure you, is not an issue. And our county forward funds a lot of projects. So we're concerned that that might take over that kind of, with forward funding. And what we mainly need is more money. We are happy to work with anybody that wants to work with us. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lebo to address the issue specifically. Thank you very much for the time. And Delegate Miller, I would love the opportunity to speak to you individually so that we can work forward and arrive at a proposition that we're all comfortable with. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Lebo, do you want to make some brief comments?
Absolutely. I will be brief. I appreciate Delegate Pippi the opportunity to speak. And Delegate Miller, if I could echo the end to Ms. Yoho's comment, we'd be happy to talk more and strategize ways to look at opportunities, not just fiscally, but ways to improve our processes. But I did want to address three specific points in the bill related to the recommendations. Specifically, the first were options to meet identified needs at a lower cost. And I would just encourage the delegation to review some of the recommendations from the Knott Commission, which occurred simultaneous with when the original legislation for Prince George's County was developed. And the majority of those recommendations are things that Frederick County is already implementing. In addition to that, there was an additional school construction work group a few years ago at the county that really looked at costs. And those are things like modifying our delivery method for school construction projects. Over the last 3 years, we've moved away from singly using construction manager agency delivery method to now using both construction manager at risk. And we've even done multiple design build contracts, both on an addition and limited renovation projects. And we've seen extremely competitive pricing associated with that. Related to that, we're also doing things like prototypes and adaptable designs to meet the site conditions to reduce overall site costs. So I think there's some of the work that wasn't being done in other agencies that we're already doing here in Frederick County. The second piece, to Ms. Yoho's point on the improvement of maintenance, I would just refer the delegation to the October release of the Interagency Commission on School Construction's Maintenance Effectiveness Assessment, where Frederick County was rated the highest local educational agency in the state of Maryland for our maintenance effectiveness. And then options for cost sharing. Those are legislatively driven requirements that the IAC has. And so, unfortunately, there's nothing as a work group that could be done to modify that. That would require legislation. The IAC is simply following the law as currently is written. So I just wanted to highlight that. So if, again, we certainly are willing to work with you and appreciate all the conversations about school construction, because I think Delegate Pippi pointed out it is a community issue. The communities are the heart and soul of our communities, and we take great pride and care in taking in our facilities. The only other piece, and I know the delegation heard it at the joint meeting, our continued challenge is not only growth, but it is the aging infrastructure and the large projects that are coming due. And so in addition to Brunswick High, we have Walkersville, Middletown, and Catoctin right behind. And the only other thing I would add is it might be premature to have some of the additional conversations you're talking about alternative financing. As a staff, we are working closely on some potential options to bring forward to the board. And this sort of might be a better conversation in primer for the 25 legislative session, where we'll have some detailed information to provide not only our board, but the delegation, but would be happy to fill you in on those afterwards. And I appreciate the time, Delegate Pippi.
Thank you. So real quick, just because we're running up on time here, Delegate Miller and looks like Senator Fulton, if you guys have any comments or brief questions for these folks, and we can get them out of here. Go ahead, Delegate Miller.
Yeah, I just want to say this was absolutely, it is designed to elevate. It is designed to elevate the process. The wording on that did come out of some of the goals of the Prince George's County. That is what I do want some input on how we make those for Frederick County, but this is the place to start. If we need legislation, we need to start having those conversations now. It is a place to start the conversation. Frederick County is a model for the state in many, many ways. And one, this will help us better communicate that and better communicate the process that we do need to go through the IAC, but we need to start having those conversations now. We can't wait to start having the conversations in 2025. So that's why the work group is critical, but happy to meet with both of you next week or call me later on today.
Yeah, and if you guys want to touch base offline in between now and next week, that would probably be a good idea for the sake of the rest of the delegation. And then Senator Fulton, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate y'all being here. President Yoho, you and I spoke prior to the holiday about the pro-Palestinian walkout that occurred at Tuscarora High School. And one of the questions and concerns, obviously, I had is that it doesn't fall in line. What happened that day does not fall in line with Tinker versus Des Moines, the Supreme Court decision about those students during Vietnam that wore an armband. We had students, and we've discussed this. We had students walk out of Tuscarora High School in the middle of class and rally for a pro-Palestinian that was authorized and approved by the school. I have a major problem with this. I asked for a copy of the letters and the speeches that were given that day in the auditorium prior to them walking out, even further out, not only out of their class to the auditorium, but then leaving the auditorium and out to the track. And now this was a sanctioned event by the school that encouraged kids. It was presented as a Israel-Hamas ceasefire, but it encouraged everyone on the flyer to be that it was pro-Palestine and to wear pro-Palestinian colors. And the school board allowed this to happen. I have a big problem with this, and I've yet to get those speeches. When can I expect those speeches in my office as to what was being allowed to be said about this whole ceasefire request that turned out to be a pro-Palestinian event?
I enjoyed our conversation, Senator Fulton, and I apologize. I was not prepared to speak on this today as I looked at your agenda, but and I'm not sure that those speeches, because they were students and they were in the cafeteria, and the cafeteria is adjacent to the track, so that the students were never out of where it was safe for them and for others. So I'm not sure if those speeches were written down. If they were, I will see what I can do to get you copies. From what we heard from a Jewish staff member was that it was all about ceasefire and human rights. There was nothing in the speeches that separated pro-Palestinian and anti-Jewish. And so there were concerns, I agree, but ultimately it became a very just ceasefire and pro-humanity speech, but we'll see what we can do to get you those.
Yeah, I know that I was told that those speeches had to be approved by your staff, and I'm curious if your Jewish employee saw the flyer that went around with the
She
request.
did, and she met with the principal. And I know you had said that some staff members were concerned about being a backlash from administration, but this staff member met with the principal prior to the event. And because of the flyer, I believe, and had a lot of concerns herself. And then she specifically emailed us to tell us how relieved she was and how proud of the principal and how proud of the students and how encouraged she was by how it actually turned out. And we talked about students getting up and moving out. I'm happy to talk to you again about this offline because I don't want to take up the delegation time with this.
No, you're not taking up delegation time. This is important stuff that needs to be heard out in the light of day. That's why I brought it up today, because I have not heard anything back. And this is, I tried to do it behind the scenes. I haven't heard anything that was done between Dr. Dyson and the principal. I haven't heard any accountability measures that were put in place that once they saw these flyers going out that was pro-Palestinian and to wear Palestinian colors, that the school board failed to shut it down and they still allowed it to go forward. That is actually the very definition of that is actually the very definition that we're not supposed to be allowing in our schools. So,
all right, so let's do
I look forward to further discussion, but I would like those letters. Thank you.
Let's do this. President Yoho, if you wouldn't mind, if you can, between now and next week, look into that and then send a response to Senator Fulton and copy our office on what you find out about any specifics on that particular instance, because we did have some folks reach out to my office as well about it with some concerns. I don't want to drag this out, but the senator did put in a request to you, and we appreciate if you can get back and include my office on that as well, because it is important. And is that sufficient for everybody for now?
Just to be clear, that request was not made specifically to me, or I would have taken care of it. I will
No worries.
take
So
care of it.
we'll, you know,
Chair-
hold
Chair-
on a second, delegate,
Yeah.
hold on a second. So the adage goes, you know, the buck stops with you because you're it. You're the president of the school board. So we appreciate you working with us on that, getting that information back. And then what I will do is I'll distribute that to the rest of the delegation. And then if they have any further questions about it, we can discuss it at the next meeting. But I think that should be good for now. I don't want to drag this out. Okay. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Are you, Senator Lewis, Young, Miller, are you guys fine with that for now?
I'm fine with that. Yes, I just wanted our office copied on, it, but I would also like to add in, I would like to know if they gave the students the same opportunities that they've given the staff member, evidently, to express their concerns, or how that met with the welcoming, inclusive environment as stated in their policies. So definitely want to know the impact on students that were harmed.
Okay, thank you. All right, Senator Lewis Young, you good?
I just want to make one quick statement. This is a topic that is very personal to me. So believe me, if there was anything anti-Semitic about this, I would be jumping up and down even louder than Senator Fulton, if that's possible. But students have a right to free speech. It's the First Amendment. So, you know, before we get too hot and bothered about it, let's make sure that we're not taking a political position and we're respecting their First Amendment rights to express themselves.
Yeah, and I think Senator Fulton was just seeking information, and I think that was the part of the issue here. So, all right, so we're going to get that information from President Yoho, not limited to everything that was discussed. So if you have other information about how it impacted students on all different sides, President Yoho, please provide that as well. Anything and everything related to that issue, and we'll get that to all the delegation members and promptly. Okay. All right, moving on. I see Hope Bonono. Do you have any brief comments for the delegation, Hope? Go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. I do. Just want to go back to the school construction, and I know that there was mention that there has been a committee created, an ad hoc committee created, and there's community member holders that stakeholders that are included in that committee. And I'm just curious. We have a city organized committee for Brunswick High School. We have not been asked to be a part of that committee as well. With the school board that is currently. And I think that is part of the reason why I think we need to elevate this to what April Miller has suggested, because a lot of the issues that are affecting Frederick County, which is, you know, I mentioned several times that, you know, one, we have $1.325 billion in backlog capital renewal and maintenance issues within the county. And every little part affects every other school district or a feeder pattern when things are happening. So I'd like to see that there are members of the community within, you know, the Brunswick city government being involved, in addition to, you know, other communities as well. The eastern part of the county seems to be getting a lot of attention. And then going back into their own comprehensive maintenance plan for 30 years, we've had 44 new schools and additions done in to keep pace with growth, but we've only had 11 capital renewals in that same time period. And in addition, most of the schools that are being built are to address elementary schools. So you have very little work done on high schools and on middle schools within the county. So I think that is something problematic that we need to look at.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Bonono. Any other comments for the good of the order? and we'll get to the members at the end, but just looks like Mr. Kapowitz. Go ahead, sir. Brief comments to the delegation.
Yes, good morning. I just wanted to note that I will be in Annapolis on and off with 6 different organizations: Youth United for Justice, the Sierra Club, Moms Demand Action, ACLU, Community Colleges, Progressive Maryland. So I will have a large list of priorities. I do want to say that I am in full support of many of the delegation's bills. Karen Lewis Young's bill on reclaiming the renewable standards, Delegate Kerr's bill, Delegate Pepe and Simpson's bill on revenge porn. I wanted to make 2 other points. One, we keep looking at money for the hotel as spending. We need to look at the money for the hotel as an investment. The minute the construction starts, you have not only jobs, but you have tax. Once that hotel and conference center is built, you have tourism revenue and you have business conferences. As business conferences come to Frederick, they will see that the business climate in Frederick is very good, that the business climate in Maryland is very good. It will attract new investment in our community. The money that is invested, not spent, but invested in that hotel will be returned to the county many times over if we stop being short-sighted and look at the long-term effects of a downtown hotel and conference center. Second, I am hearing that there are some people saying that if we put taxes on guns and ammunition, that is an effect on the Second Amendment rights. It doesn't stop you from buying those weapons, even though I don't know why you need to have a weapon of war. It simply says that gun violence is now the primary killer of children in the United States, and that gun trauma has to be dealt with by our hospitals. Over 600 cases last year. And the money from a gun tax, if directed to the trauma center, will support taking care of the fact that we have made this a very dangerous country. I do not understand why your gun is more important than your children, and we need to fix that. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments from the, I guess, the stakeholders or the public? All right, not seeing any. Mr. Burke, Newmarket, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Pepe. It's good to be here with you and all the other members of this webinar. I'm here today to ask for any updates on the HB 98 repair bill and the status of same, and for your support. Now, we understand the bill has not dropped yet, but when it does, we would like to hear from you and if you're still going to support it once you read it.
Sure. I mean, I can't speak for everyone. I think most folks wait until they see the language before, agreeing to support something or not. But I mean, the concept I support, obviously, I think most folks on here support fixing the issue related to insurance requirements for condominiums that have detached buildings. I know it's caused some contention, particularly at an active adult community here in Newmarket. So I think conceptually, I support it. I think most folks here do as well, but I think we're all waiting to see the bill. I know Delegate Holmes, who kind of is the guru for that stuff, is working on a fix, and happy to update you once we see the bill, if that's sufficient for now.
Very good. Thank you. And I just one other question, if you don't mind, Chairman. Wondered if you could recommend how we can most effectively reach out to Delegate Marvin Holmes, who is, as you say, the guru of housing and real estate. We want to invite him to meet with a couple of our representatives from our community to discuss that HB 98 reparative bill. How can
so if you just go to the Maryland General Assembly website, you can go to members, you can find him. His email address is right on there.
Okay,
and so I'm happy to provide that to you. Well, if you can't do that,
yeah, I can go to the site.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming out this morning.
Thank you.
All right. So I try to get everyone out of here in an hour. Today was not possible. Sorry. Good news is you're probably not going anywhere anyways because of the snow. But if the members just want to have a brief parting comments, and then let's get everyone out of here. So Delegate Valentine, hadn't heard from you today, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is actually at the request of Delegate Weibel with regards to the vote on the county sheriff's salary work group vote. He had actually left the meeting prior, so he would like to be captured as absent as opposed to abstain. I don't know if there's a procedure that he has to follow or send that directly to your office, but he wanted it on the record in this forum.
Yep, we got him. Absent. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Delegate Kerr, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a reminder that this coming Wednesday is Frederick County Night in Annapolis.
Oh, good, excellent reminder. Yeah, please come down and spend some time with, the delegation, if you hadn't had enough of us already, but also stakeholders in the community. It's a good time, and it showcases our county in Annapolis. So thank you, Delegate Kerr. Delegate Boucher, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank all my colleagues for a wonderful debate this morning. We have a big contrast from last year. I think this is a wonderful delegation to be on. And I especially want to give credit to Chairman Pippy for his leadership making this possible. So thank you very much and enjoy the snow.
Wow. I totally did not text him say that. Senator Karen Lewis Young, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to address some information that's out there, a topic that's already been raised today, and that's about the downtown hotel and conference center. The $7.5 million that the governor funded is not for the hotel. Let me repeat that again. It is not for the hotel. I've said this many times. Clearly, there's a need to say it again. The hotel will be funded by a private developer. The $7.5 million will be used to fund aspects of the conference center and other aspects of the total project that have a community use and benefit, including necessary infrastructure. So it's very important that when we speak about this publicly, we differentiate and we recognize that it's a total project, many components of which have a community benefit. I won't go into a lot of detail on the economic benefits of this project because I think Mr. Kapowitz did a good job of that. I will commend the governor for being a visionary leader because he did recognize that the revenue generated not only by the hotel and conference center, but also the 200 local businesses within about a 10-minute walk of this project will help fund in the future community infrastructure such as roads and bridges and education, and it will add incremental revenue that we don't have today for those projects. Thank you for that opportunity of clarification.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Any other parting words for the delegation? Not okay. Delegate Fair, sir.
Just wanted to say to everybody, please be safe out there today. The weather system's come in a lot heavier than I think we were all expecting. So everyone, please be safe.
Yeah, good call. All right. Good seeing everyone. Have a great, safe weekend with some time, family and friends, and we'll see you next week. Motion for adjournment from anybody?
So moved.
All right, is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, have a good weekend. Thank you.